As a fan of not only the 80s but 90s Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, both cartoon and movie, when I heard of the new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem film that was being made, I was super excited and really hopeful for this flick. Now, when I saw Seth Rogen was a part of it, honestly, Seth Rogen is a hit or a miss for me. He had some bangers like Neighbors, Pineapple Express, and other films that he's actually done. However, most recently, he has had some downfalls such as Santa Inc. Now, where does this film kind of balance in those? Well, that's what we are here to discuss. And to be honest, this is probably going to be a shorter review of the flick. There might be some minor spoilers and possibly some heavy spoilers. So if you haven't seen it, you're more than welcome to come back to it. However, if you don't care, then let's go ahead and talk about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem.
Hello there, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and children.
Now, like I said, when I first saw that this film was being made, the, of course, advertisement for it, the logo for it, everything about it made me excited. Even so to the fact that when I noticed and heard that they were going to go back even further to where teenage kids were going to voice the Turtles, as well as have them in that age, that kind of made me more intrigued about it, just because of the fact that when our versions, they're much more older in that teenage realm, quite possibly close to actually being adults, like the 90s or the 80s version. So when I saw that they were actually going to be teenagers, that kind of intrigued my mind and thinking, okay, they're actually going to have teenagers with that type of personality, that type of humor. So let's see where we can go with this. Now, when I saw that Jackie Chan was playing Splinter, again, super excited about it. Didn't really care about anything else. Of course, the animation did remind me of the fact of Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, but of course there are differences as well as similarities to both. However, you kind of have to go in understanding and knowing that those are two separate things. And regardless, though, the animation was beautiful. When I found out of how many villains were going to play into this, I was a little bit afraid, thinking that they might play on the trope of too many villains in the flick. However, Superfly is the main antagonist, voiced by Ice Cube. And when I knew that, I was okay with it. I was perfectly fine. Now, let's go ahead and jump into the movie. Overall, the movie was okay. The Turtles themselves, I'll be honest, I did enjoy the most of. They were really well done. The kids voiced them, though I do think that Michelangelo and Donatello could have just switched the voices and it would have been a lot better for those characters. Now, there isn't very much that kind of differentiates the Turtles between one another. They kind of all act the same and are the same, and I get it, they're brothers, they're teenagers, but Leo is supposed to be a leader. You don't really see that until the very end. Raph is supposed to be this big gun-ho fighter type of guy, and really he is closer to the end, but that's only when they tell him, go ahead and smash things. Similar to the Avengers, where Captain America says Hulk smash, very similar to this. Michelangelo isn't actually all that funny, though Donatello is the funny one. He may not be as smart as he is in the other films, but again, this is them being teenagers and kind of going along those ways. And I'll say this again. The Turtles were probably the best part of this movie. There were a couple of instances where I could have easily walked out and been perfectly fine. Now, when it comes to Splinter, did not like the character. And the reason why I say that is because, yes, I grew up in the 90s, both cartoons and the movies, but he is so far away from the actual source material that it just doesn't make me like the character. He hates humans in the film, or versus has an understanding that they may not like the mutation that has happened to them, as well as understanding that, humans may take, like, for example, April O'Neil may take some adjusting. Now, in this one, he absolutely hates the humans. He wants nothing to do with them. He doesn't care if they die, that whole thing, which is completely polar opposite to what we know Splinter as. Yes, I know this is kind of like a prequel to everything else, but stay close to the source material. And that's what this film doesn't do, is it does not stay close to the source material. Now, I do know that in the most recent cartoons, they do have Splinter going from a human to, of course, a rat being transformed. But even then, it doesn't happen in this film. And even then, that's not actually what happens to him in the comic books. Again, I'm a pro keep as close to the source material, because you're not only going to have your diehard fans be appreciative, but you're also going to have new fans coming in be appreciative as well. So Splinter, didn't like him. When it came to the villains, I thought they were fine. I thought that they were okay. Superfly at the end, I was completely disappointed with when they, of course, mutated him to being a super duper fly, is what I think Ice Cube called himself. Kind of like a super shredder from Secret of the Ooze, except he's also mutated not only with a fly, but horses and whales, and it's just overall weird. When it comes to the other villains, they're fine. I mean, Bebop, Rocksteady, they're not as what you know them to be, as well as they turn good at the end, which I did not like either. Only because of the fact that, yes, it could change in the future, but they never were good to begin with. Now, if I'm wrong, please correct me down below with the comments to let me know on what I am wrong with. But again, I'm very much towards the source material. I'm very diehard with that. When it comes to April, I felt that she was fine. She was a typical high schooler. No issues there. When it came to, of course, the high school aspect of it, I was not a fan about having the turtles be part of a high school. They actually go to high school at the end. Now, with that, I know they were kind of hinting at them being appreciated and having humans appreciate them at the end of The Shadows, the second readaptation of the live action films Out of the Shadows. They did have the ability to have humans appreciate them a little bit more, save the world, blah, blah, blah. In this version, humans are helping them. They know who they are. They go to high school with one another now. I'm not a fan of that because it was never like that in the comic books. They always stayed close to the shadows, as well as their main friend was April O'Neil, and not a lot of people knew about him. So again, stay true to the source material. When it comes to the comedy, I know a lot of people love this movie and love the comedy in this flick. To be honest, it's Seth Rogen comedy. And if you don't like that comedy in his films, or don't really like Seth Rogen or like the humor that he brings to the movies, honestly, you probably won't like this movie because they talk about the term milking. They use the term milking so much and they use the joke so much that it just becomes irrelevant and it's not funny anymore. And on top of that, they use other slights of humor that just gets beaten to the ground so many times that it just doesn't become funny. Again, they're all part of possibly being Seth Rogen jokes, but that's what happens when you have Seth Rogen as the producer. But overall, though, it was okay. In full honesty, will I buy it? I mean, I am a fan of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, so probably will it be a go-to for the future? Not really, because to be honest, the other films have done a lot better. And when you have the second adaptation of live action for the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles do a lot better than this film, that's got to say something. So there's a lot of critics out there that are saying, you know, this film is great, 97% on Rotten Tomatoes. Just go in with an open mind that you may or may not like it. By individuals that I've talked to personally, do not agree with those reviews either. So again, I wasn't so much of a fan of it as I would have hoped for. I guess the marketing as well as the advertisements kind of sucked me into it. But overall, the music was good too. So if you have seen it, leave a comment down below. If you haven't seen it, you know, you can watch it out in theaters if you wish. Go ahead and take the kids because I'm sure the kids will like it because this film is geared towards them. So before anybody leaves a comment saying, oh, it's not meant for this generation, I understand that. It's all meant and geared towards the kids today. And I never had an issue with that either because I understood that. But overall, it's just this changing of the characters and not so much for the better. Frankly, it's probably for the worse. So like I said, if you've seen it, leave a comment down below. Don't forget to subscribe down below and follow us on all social platforms. And we'll see you next time for the next review.